All right. I think we are live. Yes, we are. Awesome. All right, folks. Well, let me make sure that all of our stuff is set properly. It looks like it is. Yeah. All right. Welcome, everybody. I'll give everybody a little bit of time to climb in here as we get ready to jump into the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide review here. I think it is just you. Oh, there we go. Everybody's rolling in now. Yeah, we're gonna jump into the video. It should go live. Their premiere should go live in a couple minutes. We can't obviously listen to the premiere intro music because the premiere intro music is copyrighted. So we'll get in trouble if we do that. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and view that in a minute here. So just give it a sec. But how's everybody doing? Everybody having a good time? Have I seen anything about Ember from Foundry? I have seen a little bit about Ember. I know that it exists. I don't know much about it. I do know that the folks from Foundry are going to be at PAX Unplugged, and I do want to go and talk to them. Because, I don't know. I'm just, I've become a slow growing fan of this due to, honestly just playing in my Vecna Eva Ruin campaign because we're using Foundry. So is there anything to even pick up in the 2024 DMG? I haven't heard anything super revolutionary. Well, one of the main things, they did announce all of the maps. There's going to be like 30 maps in it or something. There's the tracking sheets, which could be okay. But more importantly, I mean, probably they're saying it is going to have a campaign setting, right? It is going to have the an intro to Greyhawk kind of campaign setting in there. So the Bastion mechanics are also in there. By the way, I do have it open on the other screen. I'm just not putting it up for you guys yet because it hasn't really started yet. So, Ghostfire Gaming dropped a Grim Hollow Kickstarter funded in 5 minutes. That doesn't surprise me. The Ren Fair was good. I spent more than I'd wanted to, and it releases on a pair of boots. The Dungeon Master's Guide releases on November 12th to the public. And yeah, the DMG is, I mean, the big thing is it's going to have updated magic item rules, right? That's the big one. We're going to have the new version of what the 2024 version of magic items looks like. We don't know what that looks like at this point. And according to several other sources from inside Wizards of the Coast from various interviews, that we're supposed to get pricing for magic items, and we might also possibly be able to get like legitimate ways to earn and or sell them, which is probably, again, everybody uses the Dungeon Master's Guide, the existing one from 2014, just for the magic items, really. Now, they said they've made efforts, because they've acknowledged that themselves, that that's basically all anybody uses the Dungeon Master's Guide for, and they just don't look at anything else in there, which I think we can all agree. There may be some other things you pull, but for the most part, you primarily just look at the magic items. So their goal is to have that not be the case for the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. Who knows, right? I want a metric shitload of traps. Yeah, traps would be good. Good, well-designed traps would be great. It'll look pretty, have new art, new bits. Yeah, it'll definitely have new art. That is without a doubt going to be a thing. They said there's going to be pricing for every magic item. I don't know. And we've talked about this, that there's so much variety in a magic item like rarity category, because that's how 2014 was done. It was all based on category, right? uncommon, rare, very rare, but the breadth of power within that scope, right? If you look at uncommon or rare magic items, and we could do videos on this, we've done videos on this in the past, but what the difference between like how powerful certain rare or uncommon magic items are, they're drastically different, and to just give them a blanket price feels silly, right? Like a +1, a quiver of 20 +1 arrows should not cost as much as a bag of holding, right? Those are very different things, and have one has infinite uses, the other you have 20 and then they're gone. You know what I mean? A headband of intellect is an uncommon item. So is a gauntlets of ogre power, right? Setting two very significant stats for one if not other classes to 19 as a uncommon magic item. Pretty strong. The what is it? The periaptive proof against poison or whatever it is a rare magic item that's non-attunement that just makes you immune to poison damage. There is a lot of variety, and some of these are lesser used magic items, right? But like things like a stone of good luck, that's an uncommon magic item, gives you a +1 all ability checks and all skill checks. These are very strong items. Cloak and ring of protection, right? These are persistent, useful magic items that will do a lot of good things for your characters. And there are other things like the gem of brightness or a wand of magic detection that fall in the same area. And it's like these are not the same. So giving every magic item a price based on just the rarity doesn't work. You need to have degrees of variation. So that's why when they said every magic item is going to have a price, I'm hopeful that that's the case. Oh, we're getting to the countdown here, folks. Here we go. I will unmute it as soon as this AI stuff is done. Here we go.
So we have a new Dungeon Master's Guide. Tell me about what is new and exciting in this new DMG.
So this new DMG, the new Dungeon Master's Guide, is a chance for us to apply some of the feedback that we've gotten on the Dungeon Master's Guide that came out in 2014, and to do some things we didn't have the time for or the budget for last time. And one of the key philosophical things was remembering that this book should be,
art looks fantastic,
the Dungeon Master's best friend. It should feel like the book that the Dungeon Master considers to be indispensable when they're creating content for their games or when they're running their games. And so we went back and took a look at the 2014 book and said, okay, what parts of this book are delivering on that philosophy and what parts of this book
art,
aren't?
man.
Those conversations led us to restructure the book so that it's easier to find the information that you need, that it's more intuitive in terms of the order in which the information is presented, and adding things to the book that would be more timeless and always useful to Dungeon Masters. So first and foremost, the Dungeon Master's Guide is bigger. Like all of the revised 5th edition books, we have added pages.
Hold on. We're going to pause. All right. We're going to pause throughout this. Revised 5th edition. He said it. You heard him say it. Okay. We are getting clearly more art for the magic items. We can see the Pipe of Smoke Monsters has its own artwork, as well as several others. I'm hoping everything has a piece of art. We can see the Filter of Love down here at the bottom. And this says something healing boost whenever you roll a hit point to double the number. Okay, that's the periaptive wound closure. All right, let's keep going.
Pages to the book. Things that were not in the 2014 book that are in this book include 5 short sample adventures.
Okay.
A complete campaign setting.
Okay. A complete campaign setting means something to me. I don't know what a complete campaign setting means to you, but like we have books that are campaign settings like Theros and Ravnica and Eberron. That's a complete campaign setting. Are you truly including a complete campaign setting? We'll see what that means. But that's fine. 5 sample adventures. And they have said this in the past. I'm sure Chris is going to say it in a minute here, that they want this Dungeon Master's Guide to be much more show than tell. And by that, he means, hey, if you want to write a small, like, one-shot short adventure, here are 5 examples of that do different things. And in theory, it should also tell us how to write those. Same thing with this campaign setting that we're talking about. You want to write your own campaign setting? Here's an example of a campaign setting. Here's how we determined XYZ within that campaign setting, to give you the opportunity to show you, here's an example, and then here's what we did. That's what they've stated in multiple other interviews and things that I've conducted, and videos and panels I've been in. So I think that's the case. And also artwork of the cartoon characters again.
A lore glossary, which is a place where we gather up sort of encyclopedia.
The setting is Greyhawk. We know that.
Style entries on various characters, locations, and substances in Dungeons and Dragons that you may or may not know about.
And this is something, so we have the rules glossary in the player's handbook. This is the lore glossary mimicking that in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And this is, I'm sure he's going to go over it again, but like, those of us who've been playing D&D for a while, we might know who Lulth is. We might know who Strahd von Zarovich is, or Lord Soth, or Vecna. But a newbie player doesn't know who those are, and their name gets thrown around in a lot of different adventures to the point where you feel like you're missing out. You don't know the things, and that's what's supposed to be fixed in this lore glossary. We'll see if that's the case. But
And another totally new feature of this book is the Bastions chapter. Those things alone, the adventure content, the campaign setting, the lore glossary, and the Bastions chapter, that's all new content that we wanted to get into this book, and that's why the book is one of the reasons why the book is bigger.
Why is it so chunky?
It's a chunky book. Yes, exactly.
We've got tons of new art for magic items. More magic
Yeah.
items are illustrated now than in 2014, so
Good.
there's more things you can see what they look like. There's a couple places where we weren't super satisfied with the way a magic item looked. And so we
Such as spider
redid
climbing.
those. Our art director, Emmy, put together a lineup of all the potion art we had, just so you could see them all together. There's a couple of really sweet pieces in there.
These look
Some
great.
sort of inside jokes, like the potion of invisibility. It looks like an empty bottle.
like that.
And the
that a lot.
potion of pugilism bears a certain resemblance to canned spinach.
Oh, perfect.
Wow.
So one of the
Popeye.
chapters of the
Nice.
book is called Creating Adventures, and it's all about helping
Also, potion of pugilism. That's a new one. Just might give you bonus to unarmed strike or something.
the DM create adventures. The advice that we give is very different advice than we'd give to somebody who is trying to basically publish their own content. Because when you're creating content for yourself and you are the audience,
That art.
there are tips and tricks that we can give you to help you do that. But all the advice aside, nothing compares to being able to see the advice being implemented. So after giving you a bunch of advice on how you can create your own adventure content for your
I was
own
talking about.
groups, we present 5 short adventures in a format that we think DMs will want to emulate and use for their own prep, accompanied by the maps that are in one of the appendices of the book. These adventures are meant to show you how you can create and outline your own adventure content in a way that will be very easy for you to run at the table.
We're going to go over this in detail once the Dungeon Master's Guide comes out and see if that is truly the case or not. Also love this piece of kobold art here.
Most of the adventures are about a half a page. Doesn't seem like a lot, but you can actually pack a lot of information into a half page if you're the person who's going to be running the adventure.
Yeah, like that's the way. I'm sure you don't format your entire. When you're running your own
No.
home game, you're not like formatting everything appropriately.
No, when I'm running my home game,
Yeah.
I essentially have a piece of paper that has notes
Yeah.
and key beats, and then I have whatever maps and stat blocks I need to run encounters. That's kind of the philosophy behind these adventures. Is they're skeletal in a way, but they have all the information that you need to feel confident that you'll be able to play with your friends. So we have a level 1 adventure, level 2 adventure, level 3, and then I think we have a couple gaps, and then some higher level content in there as well.
So I really like this because this is very different than I feel like people like it's interesting to hear the design philosophy on this is not the advice we'd give somebody who wants to make their own adventure to publish, which they're making that very clear, because that is different, right? The way you and I run a game, the way we run our session at home for our home games, or maybe even if you're streaming your stream games, is going to be drastically different than if you're going to pen this adventure to publish it for somebody. Because if I'm going to write down this adventure and hand it to somebody and say, and potentially charge you to buy my adventure, I need to give you all of the information perfectly designed and written out in a way that should give you all you'll need to have to run that adventure. When I'm running a game at home, I don't need the entire lore and history and all that stuff spelled out. Maybe I have that, maybe I don't, but what I need is the story beats and the things that are going to hit for this adventure. I need that. And the fact that this, in theory, this adventure writing section, that they're going to have that kind of layout for you, and then the sample adventures, is designed to facilitate you running games, not to facilitate you publishing an adventure, which is this very intricate distinction, which I do appreciate them taking the time to say that, hey, that's what we're doing. That just makes sense. Probably, I don't know what the number is, call it 75%, it might be a lot higher than that, but say like 75% of people running dungeon mastering D&D are not looking to publish their adventure. They're just looking to run a game. For that other 25%, that's a different story. But if the majority of the people are just running games for the sake of running games, you should cater more towards that, because that's going to be, and it's not like that won't be useful to the people publishing, but this is just more generally applicable.
And I mentioned that these adventures are designed for use with maps. There is, in the 2014 DMG, we did have an appendix of maps. We've redone that appendix, created a bunch of wholly new maps that we think are more versatile and useful over and over and over again. What's up, Joe?
Things are good.
And those adventures refer to some of those maps. And then there are additional maps in the appendix that we don't use in the adventures that you as a DM can just take and make your own.
Having just free maps that can just be used for anything is also just a nice thing, right? This is something that, as somebody who plays games online, as somebody who has just a fat stack of maps kicking around, you having maps that suit multiple occasions, it'll be a thing you use if you're running a game. Even if you don't play with a grid, having the map for your own internal positioning on where things are, even if you're theater of the minding, that's still beneficial. And have just to give you the idea of what you're looking at, and having a bunch that are like, this is a temple, this is a city, this is a forest, this is a sewer, whatever, that's useful. There are tons of other people who've done this many, many times, and probably to a greater extent than Wizards of the Coast can in the Dungeon Master's Guide. But again, for those of us who've been playing 5e for 10 years, it's like, okay, well, thanks for giving us this now. But also got to consider this to some extent, the brand new people who are looking to jump in from Jump Street here with 2024, this will be useful for them.
You've just handed everyone a toolbox for running an adventure in a few minutes.
Correct.
That's what I love about that.
Yeah.
Like, you have these adventure hooks for various levels that you could implement yourself, and then you have maps that are attached to those, but then you have other maps as well. This really feels like it's giving people the freedom to just jump into dungeon mastering so much faster than I've ever had published before in D&D.
Exactly. Throughout the adventures chapter, there's all sorts of advice, tables, and other things that are designed to be used. We were very careful in making sure, and we had consultants join us on this journey to make sure that the content, the advice we're giving you for creating adventures, and the sample adventures were actually things that DMs will be like, yeah, this is how I want to do this, and this is not as hard as I thought it might be. And if you are an experienced dungeon master who has created a lot of adventure content for your own games, I'm sure you'll find some things in the chapter that are affirming and validating, in addition to some other useful stuff, like just sort of evergreen stuff that you can plunder, like the maps.
Perfect.
For each kind of stage of the planning process, we give you just tons of ideas. There's tables of adventure hooks that are broken out by the tier of play. So levels 1 to 4, 5 to 10, 11 to 16, 17 plus.
Dragon.
You can see how the stakes escalate in those adventure hooks. I say adventure hooks, and really I mean the situations that are going on, because then there's a separate section on here's hooks that will draw characters into those situations. We tried to separate those concepts a little bit. The sample adventures just kind of show all of that in practice, and they range from
Mouse
pretty
looks real
straightforward.
fuzzy.
There's a corruption in the forest, go find the source and kill it, to there's a fairy ball and you have to persuade the Baron of the Ball to give you his blessing.
The campaign setting. Yes. So in the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, there was a chapter.
Hold on. Take a look at this piece of art. Ooh. We're summoning, what is that? An image maybe of like a Naga or something? There's somebody just chilling on a flying carpet up here. You see that? We've got, looks like a stone giant here. Is that a Otyugh down here at the bottom? You see this at the bottom of the screen? We've got a Goliath. We've got an Aarakocra. Yeah, but this looks like, could this be like a baby frog Hemoth or an Otyugh being chased by this cat? We haven't got to magic item pricing yet. And Greyhawk versus Forgotten Realms. I'm torn. I started playing in Greyhawk, but I do have a love for the realms. So I'm kind of split down the middle on that. Is this the new? Oh, yes, the new green dragons. They do have like a cobra hood. Very cool.
Chapter on campaigns, maybe the first or second chapter of the book. It really just sort of threw you into the deep end.
Yeah.
In the 2024 DMG, we have some earlier chapters that are giving you information about what it means to be a dungeon master and sort of tricks of the trade and whatnot. We've moved the campaigns chapter to later in the book.
Smart.
It follows the Creating Adventures chapter. The reason for pushing it deeper into the book was we don't expect new DMs, particularly, to immediately jump into campaign creation.
Yeah.
Until they kind of understand what DMing is all about and how they find players and the things that they need to play and how they help their players build their characters and build a cohesive party, things like that. But when you are ready to build a campaign, this chapter does, I think, a very good job, a much better job of giving you
Some
advice
magic
that
items and
is really
characters.
useful and
Oh, there's the
showing you
Otyugh, yeah.
what a campaign looks like by giving you an example of one, which no previous Dungeon Master's Guide has ever tried to do. No previous Dungeon Master's Guide included a complete campaign setting. This is the first one to do so.
Right.
And we chose the campaign setting very carefully. This is D&D's 50th anniversary. These books are a celebration of that anniversary.
Right.
And we thought the best campaign setting for this book is the Greyhawk setting. And
There
for
you go,
those who don't
folks.
know, Greyhawk is the first official Dungeons & Dragons campaign setting. It is an old and very beloved place that has given rise to some of our greatest heroes, from Tasha to Mordenkainen, and enemies, from Igwilv to Ayuz.
There's also something lovely about the first campaign that you hand someone in the Dungeon Master's Guide is the first campaign.
Yes. And the thing that I loved about
Technically,
Greyhawk
Blackmore did
when I
receive-
first discovered
receive
it back in
Greyhawk.
whatever it was, 1980,
But
I guess,
Blackmore wasn't technically D&D yet, I don't believe.
is how customizable it is. The original Greyhawk Gazetteer was a very thin product. It gave you an entire campaign setting in about 32 pages.
Look at this art, man. Sorry, I know we should be like listening to this straight through, but just we got like pseudo Gimli over here hanging out. This wizard, look at his arm is all being burnt up by the acid from the black dragon. This is clearly a much like later stage black dragon because the acid has melted the flesh off the face. Oh, dude, and all these undead over here. These undead look great. This dude's just got like a spear through his body. And you've got maybe a paladin or a fighter. You got looks like maybe a cleric over here looking to provide some healing or some sort of defensive shield. The art is so good.
With two big fold-out maps. when I read it, there was a lot of material in there I wouldn't have used because there was some wargaming stuff in there as well. But I was struck by how sort of open and free it is, how liberating it was. It didn't put any constraints on me as a DM. I felt from an instant that the creators wanted me to take this setting and make it my own. And staying true to that, the version of Greyhawk that appears in the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, while it's complete, it's also, due to the space that we have, it's a skeleton upon which we expect you to flesh things out.
We have purposely left the details of Greyhawk pretty vague. Our starting point for that whole section was the original World of Greyhawk folio, which was really just an alphabetical listing of all these countries. We pulled back from there to focus more on the city of Greyhawk and then talk in broad terms about the regions of the surrounding world and importantly, the themes and major conflicts that can drive adventures in the world. So the threat of IUs in the north, the threat of evil dragons and Tiamat, or the threat of elemental evil, which is this constant recurring theme in the world of Greyhawk. And the starter adventures, to some degree, touch on those if you want to pull those out from the adventures and stretch them into a theme that can last for a whole campaign.
What we do is we give you a poster map in the book that has the world of Greyhawk wilderness on one side and the city of Greyhawk on the other, because we use the city of Greyhawk as a sample of what a campaign hub can be. A campaign hub is sort of where the campaign starts. It's kind of its center, its core. And while campaigns can often drift away into new hubs and go off in strange directions, we thought it was very important that we not only give you a campaign setting, but give you an example of a campaign hub, a place where the characters can call their home, where you can use as a launching point for adventures in that world.
I do like the concept of showing a campaign hub. I think that's great. I also do want to point out what Phil is over here saying in the chat, because it's it's definitely worth saying. The only DMG to provide a full setting that's a loose skeleton to build on is very 2-step forward, 1-step back. Yeah, it does feel like you're saying one thing and then immediately going the other way when you say, like, yeah, it's totally the only DMG to ever include its own setting. But also we kept it very loose and it's a skeleton so you can make it all your own. It's kind of, yeah, I don't know.
We describe the city of Greyhawk. We flesh out some of its places and inhabitants. And we give you a whole bunch of hooks and ways to...
Check out that sword that this fighter or whatever on the left has, this lightning sword. We don't have a sword like that. That's cool. And the mask on whoever's down here in the front, that's pretty cool. I'm digging the art for sure. And then again, we got our baby Otiug up at the top there.
Use this city as a hub in your campaign. And then we go out beyond that. We go into the regions around the city and we describe what are some of the nearby areas of interest. Because in a campaign, as soon as you strike out from the hub, you need places to go. Dungeons in the hills, or threats in the forest, that kind of thing. We flesh that out, and then we go even broader and show you the rest of the land known as Eastern Auric, or the Flaneus, this vast region around the city of Greyhawk that's got nations, it's got wildernesses, it's got mountain ranges, it's got all kinds of territories, land masses to explore, different environments from deserts to Arctic cold. We flesh out all of those domains
fantastic. Look at that,
to the extent that we believe DMs need to get sort of a lay of the land, but at the same time saying, hey, DM, now that we've given you this, make it your own.
Yeah.
Put your dungeon here if you want to. Add a town here if you want to. That kind of thing. It's very much built on the idea of we're giving you a sandbox.
Yeah.
We're throwing some toys in, and we're saying, go play.
Yeah. Greyhawk is yours now.
It is, yes.
It always was.
That's a great way to say it. Greyhawk is yours. And because of its legacy, you get the sense that, oh, if I'm going to build my adventures if I'm going to create my own version of Greyhawk, I can create, locations that have as much weight to them or importance to them of some of the greatest locations that have ever appeared in D&D before. Tomb of Horrors originated, had a place in Greyhawk. The Lost Caverns of Sajkan had a place in Greyhawk.
Sajkan, that's how you say it.
Your dungeons are just as welcome there as those very famous iconic ones. Your heroes, your villains are just as welcome there as Greyhawk's most iconic ones. The other great thing about Greyhawk is because it is the origin of so much of D&D's lore, it feels right for these books because we have spells in the player's handbook that are named after people who came from Greyhawk.
Yeah.
We have monsters in the monster manual that originated, and sort of found their first homes in Greyhawk. So it's deeply, deeply, deeply embedded into the DNA of D&D.
There's a couple of new spells in the player's handbook that they're talking about. This would be like Jalarzi's Storm of Radiance and Yalan's Regal Presence and stuff like that. But they're what they're referencing is like all the Mordenkainen spells, the Tasha spells, stuff like that.
The next element I want to talk about is the lore glossary. There are two appendices in the book. One is maps, one is the lore glossary. The lore glossary is an alphabetical listing of some of the most famous places, figures, and materials that are so iconic to D&D that we want them to be shared knowledge among all D&D players of all ages.
This is going to be very interesting because I'm very curious to look at it and see like what they think is stuff we need to know versus what things people think we might actually need to know and like what didn't make it in.
This is helpful to us because often in our published adventures and elsewhere, we will casually name drop something like Orcus or Mordenkainen or Lolth or the Demon Web Pits or, Baldur's Gate. Well, everybody knows Baldur's Gate now. But
now they do.
Yeah, exactly. In the Dungeon Master's Guide 2024, we want to make sure that there are places in the book that tell you where these places are, what these places are, who these people are, et cetera, and so forth. What is mithril in D&D? What is adamantine in D&D? That kind of thing. The lore glossary captures a lot of that lore that many of us old-timers have embedded in our heads, but a lot of D&D players don't.
Yeah.
Right.
And so this is just an easy, quick reference guide for people who are looking for information about this mysterious thing they've just stumbled upon.
Sort of a who's who for D&D.
It is very much like that, yes, absolutely, with some nice art pieces sprinkled in.
That stuff appeals to me no matter how much I already know. I just like reading
Asmodeus art.
Exactly.
A little bit of the lore of all those people.
And a lot of the lore comes from every past edition as well. Well, we were very careful to seed in some things in the lore.
Oh, there's like spooky Matt Mercer again. That's what we've been calling him. Creating looks like a slod, maybe.
Glossary that surfaced prominently in different editions, like the Raven Queen, for instance, was a big figure in 4th edition, and she gets an entry in the lore glossary.
Oh, so does Van Richten.
A Sararak, who goes all the way.
Oh, we see a Laurel Silverhand. We got Driz Do'Urden, a Chardalon.
Back to Tomb of Horrors, 1st edition, he gets an entry in the lore glossary. So the fourth wholly new thing in the Dungeon Master's Guide that I haven't talked about yet is the Bastions.
Well, he's talked about it a few
I'm
times.
I'm very, very excited for this.
If you saw the Bastion rules that went out in Unearthed Arcana last year, you got a glimpse of what to expect.
But only a glimpse.
Just a glimpse. After getting feedback, we've made some refinements, some additions, had a bit of fun. And of course, you didn't get to see any of the art or any of the other glorious things really that are going to make this chapter wondrous to behold. But it is an opt-in because not every campaign is built for Bastions. And it's really up to the DM whether or not to allow players to have them. Based on the game.
He was in Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
It may be a great thing for players to get, and it may not work.
Like a roving adventure that just spans a continent doesn't necessarily make sense to have a Bastion.
Exactly,
a Bastion is a great narrative hook for a group of adventurers who want to maintain a keep, a tower.
Precisely, yes. If your campaign is structured in such a way that the characters can have a home base, then Bastions will work beautifully. And so Bastions is... While the word is new to our lexicon in D&D, it's built on a very old concept because even going all the way back to the earliest editions of D&D, there were rules for building strongholds.
Yeah.
Often you didn't get access to them, though, until you were much higher level. We have designed the Bastion system in the Dungeon Master's Guide so that characters can start building their bastions at level 5.
Wow.
Which is a nice sweet spot in adventuring. You've got some experience under your belt, you've got some cash, and you've got some fame to throw around. So at level 5, with your DM's consent, the characters can start building their bastions. And these continue to grow over the life of your adventuring career. But the magnificent thing about them is you basically run them as kind of like a separate little activity. It does not stop you from being an adventurer.
Yeah.
Right.
Your adventurer
like
can
this
go around
concept.
saving the multiverse, run off to the Nine Hells or run off to the Feywild, do what you have to do. Once your bastion is up and running, it is kind of a self-sustaining unit. And it's the players who run the bastions.
Right.
So every player is in charge of their own bastion and their own bastion's maintenance. And there are this mechanism called the Bastion turn, which activates whenever the DM basically says, okay, your bastions now take a bastion turn. You don't even have to be home for your bastion, for something to be happening in your bastion. What's fabulous about this is that not only does it give players a safe harbor, a home base, it gives them access to resources that they can't otherwise get necessarily as their characters. Your bastion can furnish you with things that you might not be able to get elsewhere. You can issue orders to your bastion, and those orders generate things. There's a craft order that you can issue to your bastion, so your bastion can
you'd
make
be
things.
dead if you did.
There's a
every time you
harvesting
said Bastion.
order. If your bastion has certain facilities that allow you to harvest things like poisons and herbs and other things,
I love that
you
part.
can get access to stuff.
Which is that fantasy. Like the fantasy, the first time I made a D&D character, I started thinking about like, well, what if I had a tower or a inn that was running this whole time? And what if I did have some minions or whatever as
Exactly.
things progress? Because that's what you would daydream about.
Right,
So it's like a mini game for that.
Yes, and you can recruit to your bastion. You can find creatures to inhabit your bastion. There's all kinds of fun mini activities built around this idea of issuing orders to the bastion while your characters are away or while your characters are there. If you're there, great. You can actually make things in your bastion.
So they've talked a little bit about this in a handful of different panels. We've had the Unearthed Arcana. They're going over it here. There's going to be more they're going to talk about, but yeah, I like this concept. I would like to implement these in my games where possible. I do like to try to give my players the opportunity to set up a hub depending on where they're at so they have a place to go back to. But the concept of these Bastion turns, like they said, they operate outside of your party being there. If your party is there, there are more things you can do while present, but things happen kind of autonomously outside of that. And what I think is probably the most useful thing is if there's like an opportunity where you can't play the regular session because of maybe people aren't available, the DM doesn't have time to prepare, you're going to look to play in person, but nobody can, or whatever the case may be, right? A reason why you can't play your regular session. It would be a cool opportunity to say, like, hey, listen, we made this call that we have 5 players, and we made the call that if 2 or more players can't be there, we're not going to play because it's just too much. And, otherwise somebody will kind of just pilot the other character. But 2 of those players aren't going to be there this week. So we only have 3 players in the DM, and we're not going to play the full session. We don't want to push the story forward. But maybe we all still get on the call, all still get together or what have you, and we do a Bastion session, right? So we decide how much time has passed, whatever the DM comes up with in that time. And then hey, this is an opportunity for us to still get together, still kind of build some momentum for the characters, and we'll just do Bastion stuff kind of in the downtime. This also could be something that can be handled over a group text or a Discord message where you want to keep people engaged in the time between sessions. You could do it this way. But I like this concept of it giving you something to do in the game to keep playing while you are not actively in the session. Like I said, whether this is a replacement for a session that can't be truly met, or just something like, hey, we play on Thursdays, right? We play this Thursday, we're going to play next Thursday. I'm going to send everybody a message on, like, as the DM on Sunday about Bastion stuff to just keep everybody engaged. Because I know once a week is pretty good, like, for keeping everybody's memory up to date. But maybe you play once a month or every other week. Throwing out a Bastion turn kind of situation halfway through there to just, like, pull everybody back in could be a pretty useful way to just keep that engagement up. And I think that that is something that is arguably almost better, this kind of concept of this mini game, than what the Bastions ultimately do. I mean, that's going to be beneficial for you as well, but the engagement, I think, is one of the best things.
Every dungeon is a Bastion that went wrong.
Right. And if you like your adventuring colleagues and you want to combine your bastions into one Uber Bastion, you can do that too. You're each individually still in charge of your piece of it.
Right.
But there is certain advantages to unifying your bastion. One of them being you can share its defenders, which has definite advantages. So all these opportunities are now opened up to players that they didn't have before.
Bastions are a chance for players to carve out a piece of their world and make it their own. And really, the DM's control stops at the walls of the Bastion or the outer boundary of the Bastion, whatever that is, so that the players can get a taste of being in the DM seat and telling their own stories of what things unfold with this cast of characters that inhabit their Bastion. And to have a place they feel like is home. It's like with the illustrations of the species in the Player's Handbook. We wanted to show what are characters fighting for. Mm-hmm. The Bastion kind of makes that a reality throughout a character's career once they establish this place. Like, I'm not just fighting for my own self-interest. I've got people at home that I want to protect. I've got a place that I care about.
This is James Wyatt. He has been part of the D&D team for a long time. He penned one of my favorite books of all time, which is the 3.5 Draconomicon. That was him. I started seeing his name crop up more in 5th edition with things like Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, which obviously, having written the Draconomicon for 3.5, having him on Fizban's Treasury of Dragons was like a kind of callback to that. I know he was on the Book of Many Things. He's been on a lot of stuff. I think he's one of the lead designers for the 2024 Player's Handbook, obviously here for the Dungeon Master's Guide. They've definitely pushed him more into the forefront on a lot of this stuff. I think he's been working on things like behind the scenes, credited in the books and things for probably all of 4th edition and most of 5th edition, but his name has kind of risen up the ranks more recently to the point where he's a more on-camera presence.
It sort of ups the emotional stakes in the game.
The players are essentially DMing their own microcosms within the larger campaign, giving identities to their hirelings in the Bastions, triggering events that happen in the Bastions and seeing the results and consequences of those events. That's a very DM side of things. So I love the idea that the Bastions are in the Dungeon Master's Guide because, in effect, it's allowing the players to get a taste of what DMing is like.
Yeah, it's very sneaky.
Yeah.
So, 2 things. One, in my Thursday night Vecna Eve of Ruin campaign that I play on, which actually ended up playing last night because of scheduling. But that's where Theodore the Orange, the orange wizard that you've seen me post in a variety of TikToks and videos and shorts and things like that. He's from that game. We have established in that Vecna Eva Rune campaign a base of operations in Neverwinter. Now the DM let us go out and kind of it's all one kind of shared keep within Neverwinter, and everybody sort of built their own, like in a role play story wise, hey, what does your area look like? And kind of built that out just based on what everybody wants. A lot of those correlate to the Bastion rules. So if the DM is down for this, we could, in theory, transition those into formal Bastions for use. Now, what I will tell you all, for those of you who are interested in the way I DM and my games, I play and I run on Wednesday nights a Phandelver and Below Shattered Obelisk campaign. As soon as I get access to the Dungeon Master's Guide with these new bastions, I will 100% be allowing my players to create bastions, more than likely within the town of Phandalin, as that's kind of the basis for this campaign. That's kind of the basis for where they're going to be. And I will implement the bastion rules in full so that at the very least, I will have better handle on how they work and how useful they are and how fun they are to do, and then allow my players to do and build out their bastions and follow along as that goes. And then I'll have my own personal experience on it. We can come do videos on here's what's going on with bastions. I can maybe even bring the players on. We can maybe record a bastion session, if you will, that we'll just release here on like the main channel as opposed to the gameplay channel. So I really want to give this a fair shake.
Yes, it's a wonderful out-of-game activity.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great mini game.
Yeah,
Just a day
when you're, if the session has to be canceled or
Yeah.
whatever, and you say play tonight or whatever, that's okay. Your DM can just say, everybody take a bastion turn.
Yeah. Send the message.
And
Everyone
then
can
off
work
the
on their own
players
thing.
go, and they just let the DMs know what their bastions did on,
there you go.
on that particular turn. It's a fabulous sort of game within a game.
I love that.
I'm hoping that that when DMs and players really start to interact with it and visualize their bastions, I'm hoping that they send me like maps and pictures of the bastions that they built.
And that, again, that's another thing I felt myself immediately doing. Well, I had to draw out every little thing. Like, this is what my wizard tower looks like. Or this is like the inn that got hunted by a vampire looks like.
Right, yes.
In Ravenloft. Like, that was always the worst hook I would do to my players. I would give them property in Ravenloft.
Oh, see. Yeah, I mean, it comes cheap, but I mean,
Yeah, the mortgage is very low.
Yeah.
So are the interest rates.
It's like, how many people died in this house? Oh, don't worry about it.
Why put a number on things?
And because we want the Bastion system to play nice with the rest of the Dungeon Master's Guide too, there are references to Bastion elements in other parts of the book, like the Greyhawk campaign setting in Chapter 5 tells the DM good places where characters can set up their bastions.
Oh, it's okay.
And then we have just a massive treasury.
All right, here we go.
Treasure section.
Everybody, you good? Got your drinks, got your snacks, you ready to go? You hit the bathroom because we're about to dive in to the Treasury section. This is the one that I would warrant all 300 plus of you here in the chat are here for. By the way, hey, throw a like on this video if you're watching. It helps drive it up so we can get more people here in the live stream. But this is the section I'm most excited about. I bet you it's the section you're most excited about as well.
Yes, so as in 2014, the biggest chapter in the Dungeon Master's Guide is the treasure chapter.
Loot.
Loot, yes. Magic items are typically the purview of the Dungeon Master, which is why magic items end up in the Dungeon Master's Guide.
We got a, what is this, Book of Vile Darkness, maybe? Looks like it's got flesh on the spine. That would be my guess.
Even though players access and play with them
belt
a lot. And so just like we're doing with the spells in the player's handbook, every magic item is getting, you've got a little hairy eyeball. We took a look at it. We made some refinements to it. We stuffed even more magic items into the chapter.
We love that.
To address certain holes.
Everybody hold. All right. Potion of Fire Breath. We got Plate Armor of Invulnerability, I think is what I'm seeing right here. Is that what you guys are seeing?
Or gaps that we'd identified. For instance, there in the 2014 DMG, there weren't a lot of common magic items. So we imported
I don't care about common magic items. I care about magic items that cover things that aren't just swords.
a few. We also saw opportunity to squeeze in some, shall we say, nostalgic delights. In celebration of 50th anniversary, including things like magic items used by the kids.
Ooh, look at this art with Hank and Bobby.
Kids in the D&D cartoon.
Perfect.
Hank's energy bow or Diana's quarterstaff, Eric's shield.
There's a Hat of Vermin. I think that's a common magic item that exists. Here's Presto pulling out his hat.
Bobby's club, Presto's hat of many
Uni's horn.
spells. No, not Uni's horn.
Kelly got her.
Uni gets to keep her horn at least for a bit. And one of the items was already in there, of course. Sheila's Cloak of Invisibility has been in the game a long time, but it felt long overdue to get the other items stuffed in there as well.
The Cloak of Invisibility, though, if it follows the one from the Uni's Search for the Lost Horn, is a pretty sizable buff to it, because that one is a very rare magic item, whereas the Cloak of Invisibility from the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, I believe, is a legendary magic item, which also is something maybe they'll touch on, but we've talked about this, is, yeah, the Cloak of Invisibility from 2014 was a legendary magic item. And it basically seems to have the exact, or no, wait, I'm sorry. It is now a legendary magic item. Huh. Did they change that? Because I'm pretty sure when we covered it in the Uni's Search for the Lost thing, it was listed as a very rare, and now it's listed as legendary on D&D Beyond. I don't know. Maybe that was a typo or something. I don't know. Okay, never mind. Okay, well, either way, let's keep going.
We've sort of opened the door on some items as well. For instance, flame tongues.
Oh, here we go, folks.
Are an example of a weapon that used to be very limited to the type of weapon you could apply it to.
Yeah.
We've now actually broadened that. So you could have a flame tongue great club if you want to.
Okay, so we're expanding flame tongue to other weapon types now.
Yeah.
Or a flame tongue halberd.
Great, love that.
So just looking for ways to surprise and delight, even in existing items.
I need more trick arrows. So I will spend a lot of money on trick arrows.
Yes. The arrow of slaying became the ammunition of slaying, of which the arrow of slaying is but one. So if you want sling stones of slaying, or bolts of slaying, or bullets of slaying, now that is baked in.
Oh, that's cool.
Because that's the other thing. The DMG, the Player's Handbook, all the new core rule books are really opening things up for the multiverse of D&D, and that can mean laser guns, or that can mean weapons that use ammunition like bullets and stuff like that. So you have, because we're talking about Eberron, we're talking about, Expedition to Barrier Peaks, or Spelljammer. This is a broad set of magical items in fantasy that you're supporting in this one.
Right, and allowing more variety in the world, because variety is richness, and the D&D is many, many worlds,
and their prices.
Well, there always were, but in the 2014, you could divine the cost of a rare item or a very rare item. We've made that a lot clearer this time around by fronting, hey, here's how magic items are costed.
Yeah.
I think we're getting. I don't think we're getting individual pricing, folks.
We've also taken another crack at the crafting magic items rules. How do you, a player, how do you, a character, craft an item of your own, with your DM's consent, of course?
Right. That's extremely exciting for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because then you take ownership of a magical item, potentially that you made yourself, or any item.
It's been fun to try to shoehorn more items, to make items more fun, and then to open up the possibilities for crafting magic items in this new version of the Treasure Chapter.
Pretty art for whatever these are.
Is the crafting system also in the Player's Handbook, or is it only the DMG?
That is a great question. So the answer is yes. There is crafting magic items in the Player's Handbook, but it's limited to
scrolls and potions.
Some very simple potions and scrolls.
Okay.
So you can create a low-level spell scroll, or you can create a potion of healing, or some other low-level potion. The rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide are broader and encompass more variety.
Don't get too excited. I'm skeptical on the crafting. I'm skeptical on the prices too.
Looking at the new Dungeon Master's Guide cover art, it's very charming, and on purpose having Warduke and Venger up front. This is who you are as the Dungeon Master. Not only to show them a good time, but you are the one who embodies the villains.
Yes, that was very deliberate, whereas with the Player's Handbook, we wanted to show sort of an iconic group of heroes and a gold dragon to celebrate the golden anniversary of D&D. With the Dungeon Master's Guide, like you say, Todd, the Dungeon Master is about playing the villains and the monsters more often than not. And for the 50th anniversary, it seemed absolutely fitting to tap into some of the most I guess, iconic, nostalgic villains in our huge rogues gallery of villains. I've always had a fondness for the cartoon series. I grew up with the cartoon series. Many people don't know Venger, they don't know Warduke, and they don't know Scylla, and I want them to.
It's also a bit of the aesthetic for the art for the DMG, because you are the one who runs the villains in these scenarios, so the art, it's not focused on heroes as much.
Right? Yes, it's
cool
focused
art.
on the threat or the danger.
Yeah.
So if you want the creepiest art, you need the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Well, certainly with this Dungeon Master's Guide, we wanted it to feature the villains and locations and places of D&D. Because the Dungeon Master's Guide, not only do they bring villains and monsters to life, they also bring settings to life, worlds to life. And so we took great care this time around to make sure that we have lots of art showing bad guys and places, so that you get sort of the full range of the multiverse. And you and I now have batted around this multiverse word a few times. How important is the multiverse to D&D? It's extremely important. It is the default setting for D&D. It is all of our worlds. It is all of the worlds that our fans create. They are all part of this multiverse, and they are all welcome, and they are all important. So in our art this time around, and in the books themselves, in the text, we wanted to drive that point home, that the multiverse is our setting, and look, it's magnificent to behold. We have a whole chapter on the cosmology of D&D, which talks about the worlds of D&D and the planes of existence that are out there waiting to be explored.
Oh, this is new.
We tried to make them more beautiful this time around. We tried to give you even more useful information as a dungeon master about some of these places, while still making it clear that, hey, you're the DM. What you show of the multiverse is entirely up to you.
Perfect.
We haven't talked a lot about the tracking sheets.
Yeah, tell me about the tracking sheets.
One of the fun new features that's sprinkled through the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide are these delightfully charming tracking sheets that not only do we put in the books as kind of like a show and tell to show you what we mean, but also we're going to make them downloadable off of our website so that you can just print them out and put them in whatever you use for your campaign journal. And these sheets are designed to help you keep track of important
art on them
information
is adorable.
in
It's all
your
like
game
baby
or in your
monsters.
campaign. If you want to create a new NPC, there is a sheet that we give you that you can use and write on to capture important information about that NPC, and it's presented in a very clean, elegant way. There is a sheet that you can use to build settlements like towns and villages. There's a sheet players can use to keep track of important information about their bastions. There is a sheet you can use as a DM to keep track of the magic items that you've dispensed to the party in the course of the campaign.
The baby Sphinx
to
of
keep
Wonder.
track of important character information, so that you have some information about the characters in the party readily accessible to you as a DM behind your screen, so that when you're planning adventures, you can remember, things about the characters' backstories that might tie into greater plots in your campaign. There's a sheet that you can use to track major conflicts in your campaign and then update them accordingly. And then I think most importantly, or the sheet that I find most useful, is the session planner sheet, where you've got a game session next week. You can write down the key beats of what you think is going to happen, key characters, make notes and other things. These sheets are beautiful. I think they're compelling. I think a lot of DMs will want to use them or want to create versions of them. And they have charming little illustrations of monsters.
The art is
which
cute.
I think are absolutely delightful.
Can't argue that.
Baby monsters.
Everyone loves baby monsters.
Baby monsters, yeah. So they really are quite.
They have said that they will have them available for download for free off D&D Beyond.
Charming. And I think that in addition to things like the lore glossary and the poster map, I think that these tracking sheets will be one of the most endearing and always useful parts of the book. Now, I haven't talked about the first 3 chapters of the book, Todd.
That's my fault. I am a terrible interviewer. Well, tell me about the first few chapters of the book.
Chapters 1, 2, and 3 are super important.
Okay.
And we put them at the front of the book because they're super important.
That's a good structure.
Chapter 1 is called The Basics.
Perfect.
It is a short chapter, primarily aimed at DM curious folks who haven't DM'd much and are curious to really kind of dive in and sink their teeth into the DM role.
Right.
What do I need to play? How do I get my players together? What's the first steps, basically? What is this DM screen and what the heck do I do with it? Very, very basic. Let's set the table.
Here's your first day as a dungeon master.
Yeah, if you're even thinking about being a dungeon master, these are the things that you want to think about. And this is just some baseline information that will be super, super valuable to you. And then when we quickly segue out of there into chapter 2, which is called Running the Game. And it is literally that. It includes a sample walkthrough of play. There are similar things in the player's handbook, but this one is more aimed at the dungeon master. It has very basic but tried and true advice on creating a fantastic experience for your players and for customizing the experience for the players that you have, which I think is super key to being a successful dungeon master. It's not enough just to necessarily run a published adventure and hope that the players get everything you want out of it. You have to think about who's around the table and make sure that you're delivering an experience that everybody's going to enjoy. And so this chapter is focused on helping the DM actually run a fun game. And I think that even if you are a very experienced DM, there's going to be something in here that's going to make you go, oh, well, yeah, I should totally be doing that. How do you bring foreshadowing into play and make that part of your game? You may be an experienced dungeon master, but you haven't had a lot of experience with a certain aspect of the game, and this chapter will help you with that.
How to look like a genius. Yeah.
Yes. How to convince your players that it was your plan all along.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I've often written articles about things like the invisible railroad. Is how do you keep an adventure moving toward a destination while not making the players feel like they're trapped on a railroad and have no power to alter what's going on around them. The Running the Game chapter is all about creating best play experiences, and so it's super valuable both to new and experienced DMs.
In chapter 2, we started off with a section called Running Combat. Talks about rolling initiative and tracking position on the grid and that sort of thing. And we've always had a section called Running Combat. What we didn't have is a section called Running Interaction or a section called Running Exploration. Now we have both of those. They're not as extensive as Running Combat.
Is there going to be anything of use in the Running Exploration chapter? Because that'll be interesting.
Because it's the nature of the game that those things are more about the conversation between DM and players, really entirely in the case of interaction and more so in the case of exploration. But one of the things I added into that Running Exploration section is a different approach to overland travel or any kind of long journey that characters make that not only sort of streamlines the process of running a long journey, but
Yeah, this is one of the coolest looking goblin I think I've seen in all of 5e, is this dude right here.
also helps the DM plan for a journey so that it's not just a matter of, I'm going to roll an encounter for every day of travel, but rather you're thinking of the different stages of the journey, how they unfold as a narrative, and what are the obstacles that the characters have to overcome in each of these journey stages. So
that sounds promising.
Like, that helps my narrative brain think about handling a long journey in the middle of an adventure, or an adventure that is a long journey. It might be that one of these stages ends at a ruin that the characters are going to explore, or that's their destination at the end, that is the dungeon that is the centerpiece of the adventure. It's a relatively minor thing, but it really came together nicely, and I think DMs are going to find it a huge help for part of the game that is often overlooked.
Common something. Non-player characters. It says common something over there. I don't know what that is, though.
Looked or neglected or not really understood.
Names? Maybe names.
When we get to
common
chapter 3 is a weirdo. So after we dispense with the advice on how to run a great game, and before we get into conversations about creating your own adventures and creating your own campaigns.
Okay.
There's a bunch of topics that have to be covered that don't really, that are very situational. Traps, how poisons work,
Okay.
siege engines.
This sounds like your optional rules
Information
section.
about NPC building. A bunch of these miscellaneous topics that the 2014 DMG covered, but they were sort of scattered
Right.
everywhere
So
throughout
these
the
are the
book.
building blocks.
Yes, this is a good way to look at it. Building blocks. We call chapter 3 the DM toolbox.
Okay, this could be what everybody's asking about.
Because it's just this cyclopedia of miscellaneous parts,
Toys.
toys that can come up in play. And we organized it alphabetically by topic. So it is this alphabetically topical listing of different things. You need more information about curses and how curses work. There's a section on curses. Hazards, green slime, yellow mold, brown mold, some new ones, fireball fungus.
No.
Yes.
Sounds great. I like fireball fungus.
That's all in the hazards section. It's a very well organized grab bag of miscellaneous topics that come up in games all the time.
And I adore that stuff. In the some of the Dungeon Master screens, there's a scale of damage. Like, what if you fell off a
improvised
mountain?
damage,
Yeah, what
yes.
if a meteorite fell? And here's the damage. That I found so helpful.
Yes.
Then
yes.
making it myself, it also was a nice point of, like, here's a really fun hazard to present to the players.
Yeah.
Because too often you can think about thinking about weapon damage and spell
This is
damage, but what happens when
whoa,
an
look at this art.
avalanche hits you? What then? So that sounds like that entire chapter is that.
It just looks
Yeah,
like an oil
and so
painting.
that's the book all told. You've got it starts off with the fundamentals, then goes into the esoteric, and then it goes into the create your own stuff, and then it goes into the treasure and bastions, the goodies.
So we did have, to those of you bringing it up, we did have some interesting stuff in the 2014 that I'm hoping it'll be in Chapter 3. This would be things like the chase rules. This would be things like the other funky mechanics, like spell points as opposed to spell slots. I don't think you need to do things like the honor or the sanity system or things like that, but they had those. They had the rules for the gritty realism in the 2014. They had the teaching you how to make a class, teaching you how to make it was a race then, a species now, where they showed the Azamar. They had the villain classes, which was the Oathbreaker Paladin and the Death Domain Cleric. They had the modern weapons with the energy rifles and the antimatter shit and all that stuff. So there was a lot of experimental stuff that had the potential. There was the rules for downtime, had its official rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide with things like carousing and buying and selling magic items. You had things like the potion miscability table, where if you drink 2 potions, maybe it has a funky reaction in your stomach. You had the rules for crafting magic items, which it sounds like they will have, but it also had the funky stuff for the history of the magic item and all this other kind of stuff. I'm hoping that all of that, maybe not all of it to the degree it was, because some of it was just very clear, let's throw a table in here and then move on. I would love a more expansive potion miscability table. I would like truly extensive crafting and downtime rules. I would like here's a little bit about how to build a monster, how to build a subclass. That's useful stuff that people would like to have. I think you should have it here, but I don't know. Yeah.
This is an entirely new book.
It is taking the wonderful bits.
There was no mention of anything about subclasses at all in this. I'd like Oathbreaker and Death Domain to be. I don't think they're going to be, though.
Of the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide and resorting them and blending them in a way with new stuff that does, in fact, turn it into a new book.
The 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide was kind of I use the word toolbox a lot. I love talking about that's what I love to do, is provide dungeon masters with a big box of tools and toys that they can take out and do stuff with.
Right.
The 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide was too much that. It was like just a big toolbox with not enough direction and guidance for how to use this stuff.
Yeah.
So the 2024 DMG starts from the very beginning, from the foundation of what it means to be the Dungeon Master's Guide. What are the roles that you take on at the table, and how do you wrangle your friends together to play this game, and what's the nature of your interaction with them, and really, we spend time in the Player's Handbook telling you how to play, and that this is fundamentally a narrative game where it's all in dialogue, and the DMG pulls the curtain back a little bit to show you what's going on inside the Dungeon Master's head while all that is happening. So we're teaching you really from the beginning, how do you do this amazing, awesome, terrifying task of running the game.
This has to be very exciting for
They
you.
said there would be custom background
It is super exciting
information
for
in
me, partly because
whether that's true or not.
I felt that we didn't have as much time the last time around to really stick the landing on the Dungeon Master's Guide, because we were a very small team doing a lot of work with very little resources. And this time around, it was nice to be able to, with 10 years of information, go back and say, okay, it's very rare to get a second crack at something. And I think this time around, a lot of thought over the years has been placed into creating a user experience around these books that is just much better. And I'm grateful for that time that we could do this, that we could take these books that millions of people use and they love, and just make them a better experience.
Thank you so much for watching. Every week leading up to the brand new 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, we'll have new videos and premieres telling you more about the book. To pre-order the 2024 core rulebooks digital physical bundle, click on the links in this video description and find out more about all the pre-order bonuses, including frames, backdrops, dice sets, digital dragon art book, and the digital golden dragon mini. I'm Todd Kenrick. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like, the subscribe button, and also the notification button so that you're alerted when we have brand new videos about the future of D&D.
All right. Well, there we go, folks. That is the new everything you need to know about the new 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. So, what do we think? What's everybody's thoughts on this? We like it. We big fan. I do think that, as many of you pointed out, the glancing over the magic item pricing, yeah, we have prices. Yeah, if it was a specific price for each item, I think you would have specifically called that out, because that's huge. It sounds like it's going to be more like the rarities were on the pricing for the 2014 book, and I don't love that, but I think that's probably what it's going to be. They did kind of, we mentioned it, where they're like, it's got a first Dungeon Master's Guide with a full campaign setting. But the campaign setting is just a skeleton so that you can make it all your own and do all the work yourself anyway. How could you say one thing and then immediately say it's the exact kind of it's not the exact antithesis, but it's like, it's a full campaign, but really it's not. So that was a little odd. I think the Bastion section's going to be great. I think the magic item section's going to be great. And here's the thing. That doesn't make it that much different than the 2014 book, where people are probably going to use it primarily for the magic items. And the fact that Bastions were added, they will use it for Bastions as well. The lore glossary, maybe. We don't really know how good or useful that will be. Could be good. But I'm hoping for some improved chase mechanics or whatever. I did see some folks calling out there's the world maps. There's 20 or 30 maps. There's the world map of Greyhawk, which is double-sided to be the city of Greyhawk, 5 starter adventures, things like that. Let's see. Have I checked out the Game Master Guide for Tales of the Valiant? I have it. I just haven't had a chance to check it out, but I do have it. They did say that they went and reviewed all of the magic items that were in there to give them all sort of a once-over with a 2024 eye, as well as adding new magic items. We saw a couple. I think the Pipe of Smoke Monsters, I feel like there's something. I think that might exist. I think that's a common magic item, actually. And it just looks really cool. A lot more artwork for the magic items, which I do appreciate. Seems like there's going to be at least a couple lists of names in there for NPC building, which isn't bad. So, there's definitely some stuff to check out in there, which is cool. But I'm very curious about that chapter 3. But like I said, we talked about it earlier. If you're gonna lock in magic items based on their price or their rarity, that's not the way to do it because there's so much breadth in variability between magic items. So, I don't know. But it wasn't too long of a video. How long have we been live? Only an hour. So that I felt like the time when they first did the first one with the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook, I felt like it took a lot longer. The tracking sheets will be available for free. Yeah, the Sane Magic Item Prices PDF already exists. Yeah, there's a bunch of people that have done things to give you different magic items, and pricing. So there's options for it. Yeah, let's see. What else could we discuss while we're here? Because that honestly did not feel as long. Like, I thought it was going to be like a slog and we'd be here for like 3 hours already. And it did not feel like that at all. So that's a good sign. There is something I wanted to go over with you guys, which we could just kind of clip it out into its own video. But they released that art book. For the what's it called? It was the art book for the dragons, and I want to see if I have it. I have it somewhere. Let's see if I can find it. Well, there's another video this week, by the way, folks. There's a video on Thursday. I forget what it is, though. Hang on, I can tell you in a second, I think. The video coming out Thursday that'll be probably live at the same time is, I think, Bastions. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. It is, yes, Intro to Bastions is Thursday, October 3rd. And it sounds like, from what Todd said, every week until the launch of the Dungeon Master's Guide, which is this week, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more weeks between now and the street release of the Dungeon Master's Guide. We don't know if he's just going till early access or not, but there should be at least, could be potentially 12 more videos between now and next week. Sorry, now and the release of the book, rather. So, okay, let's see. I'm also still very skeptical of how this all eventually gets sucked into Sigil as a primary focus point for the game. Yeah, we'll see how things incorporate. I hear some people already got like beta keys for Sigil already. I didn't, which is kind of a bummer because I've been in it more than most folks at this point. I definitely did reach out to WotC specifically to be like, hey, can I'd love to be like on the forefront of announcing some of the stuff about this. Like, what do I need to do? And then I just haven't heard anything, unfortunately. So we'll see, but hopefully at some point I hear something. Let me pull up, see if I can find the video or the book about the dragon art, and we can go through that, because I think that'd be kind of cool. I just don't remember what email it's in. Okay, no, that's not it. This is all of what's happening at D&D Beyond. Not a single mention of encounter balancing. Maybe the encounter balancing stuff will be in the monster manual. Even if there are only 6 more videos, that might explain why this video was so bare bones. That could be it. I'd be very interested in seeing your thoughts on the Ember thing if you get some time. Yeah, I'll take a look at it for sure. I mean, we still, ultimately, we still don't really know how this one's going to look compared to the old version. We're going to have to figure that out once we get our hands on it. But we'll see. Where the hell is this book? And why can't I find it? Yeah, what about challenge rating our creatures? Yeah, they didn't mention anything on encounter building. Like I said, there is the potential that encounter building could be included in the monster manual, which to some degree kind of makes sense because, that's where the monsters are, right? So why not include it in there? But I also could understand them you putting in a Dungeon Master's Guide, because that's part of it, right? Is you learning all about how to build an encounter as a Dungeon Master's specific thing. So that does make sense. Do you think the section on creating monsters would contain stuff about using PC classes for NPCs? Unfortunately, no. I don't think it would include that. I think that's a thing that we would want. I think that's probably a useful thing. I don't disagree with you. I just don't see it happening. Just because that seems to be how things are. What I'm looking for in the DMG is help for inspiring adventures and making it easy to prep and organize sessions. Can't really say how good this book will be until we see the pages. Yeah, I agree. I mean, having, it did sound like they had adventure hooks and stuff planned, which is something, right? Adventure hooks is good. We like that. That could be beneficial to everybody. More templates, archetypes. That would be great. Templates, archetypes in the monster manual. I've been saying that for years. Yeah, anything that isn't combat that rewards players in a way that doesn't make them OP is great. Yeah, well, the other thing that's interesting that we, again, oh my God, I just lost my train. Oh, is the exploration, right? They brought up the concept of encounters, meaning like social encounters, and exploration as things that we should have, like there will be sections on within the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I'm very curious about that because that is 2 of the weaker sections of the 5th edition as a whole, really. So I would love to get some more information on that. Here's hoping for more than 3/4 of a page for exploration. Bet it's just a couple tables to roll on. Yeah, adventure hooks, you can find them online. I don't disagree. It is what it is, really. Man, I really thought I'd had that. I guess I closed that tab. Yeah, you can find adventure hooks online pretty easily. I can't deny that. But they want to include all this stuff inside their book so that there's a reason for you to want to pick up the Dungeon Master's Guide. And if you're going to pick it up for other reasons, at least to some degree it'll have things that you can use like adventure hooks. Yeah, how much is going to be on social interaction, how much is going to be on exploration, I don't really know. I do know that I would like there to be a lot, because I'd like to actually make use of those aspects of the game. And a lot of people have brought it up, and I mean, I'll say it again as well. A lot of people will say part of the reason why the Ranger feels so poor in the grand scheme of things is because of the fact that one of the Ranger's main focus is the exploration side of things, and the exploration side of things is pretty weak. So if you have a class built on excelling at one particular aspect of the game that's not particularly well supported, like exploration, when most of the game's support is from combat, and then you give the Ranger a bunch of things that might be useful in an exploration situation, that's something that you're just not going to get a chance to use. Now, I'm not saying that excuses a lot of any of the stuff they did to the Ranger, but it's not true, I guess. The real struggle, like take fishing or carousing, for example, there's 100 ways to do both those things. Having official rules would make it really simple. Agreed. Even more, some basic rules for gamifying exploration, so it's not just roll survival, you get there in X days. Yeah, I 100% agree. Some form of, game, yeah, like you said, gamification, mini games, kind of how they're talking about how like Bastions are a mini game. Something like that would be extremely useful to have for other aspects like carousing, hunting, fishing, and so on. Let's see. I still want to know the in-house CR calculator. Yeah, that would be wonderful to know. I'd love to hear how they justify some of that stuff. A guy following Patreon came up with a cool system for social interactions. Yeah, that's the thing, is unfortunately most of the stuff's going to come from third party. Monster Manual CR and counterbalancing will be a big part to look out for, I think. You have a die hidden from the player. Every time they do something that the NPC likes, you increase the die face. Otherwise, you decrease it. If it reaches max, you succeed at what you were trying. The reason the Ranger feels bad is because its higher level features are based around... Yes, correct. All right, I want to take a look at and get your guys' opinion on this kind of free art book that we receive when you do the pre-order. It's called Dragons of D&D, and it's just art of dragons from the current updates of the dragons. I want to get your guys' opinion on it. So we're just going to jump into a quick intro here and then just roll into it. So here we go. What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and we're currently live streaming, but we're going to be reviewing this kind of myself and a chat as we go through the Dragons of D&D art book. This was a pre-order bonus that we received for buying the bundle of everything from D&D Beyond. Also, subscribe and like this video and the channel if you haven't done that already. Let's just go ahead and dive in. Here it is. It's called Dragons of D&D. So we can see this really epic piece of art with this dead gold dragon in the front with these people mourning it, and this ancient red dragon in the background with some cultists here. It's got a decent amount of like concept art. We have a little bit here forward from Josh Herman, the D&D head of art. And then it talks a little bit here, which I thought was interesting, to see the process that it takes to get to the art that we actually have, right? So from clay sculptures to 3D models to 2D sketches, we explored several ways to look at dragons. We'll show you some of the unseen work that led up to the amazing illustrations that grace both the books to come. So this I thought was wild, is that they sculpted several of these dragons out of clay. Take a look at this. Isn't this a little wild? The first person began working wasn't an illustrator, it was a sculptor. We wanted to look at dragons from a different perspective, right? We could see here's the gold dragon, right? We explored a serpentine design without traditional wings. Simon Lee had the idea instead of their wings getting bigger as they aged, they would grow more short wings along their sides. And again, we have this. I think this is the blue dragon, maybe. And yeah, look at all of these clay sculptures of dragons. I'll be honest, I would never have believed that this would have been part of the process for illustrating these things. I imagine you would have just drawn them up, but I like that they did it all in clay. Yeah, and it does make sense. And honestly, to your point, Domo in chat, this may be because we know we're getting miniatures in Project Sigil. So between that and potential WizKid minis, it may have made sense to kind of truly build them out of clay to get a good example for when it comes to rendering. Simon's sculpt of a dragon breathing fire gave us an excellent way to see what camera angles we could explore in an action scene. Again, we explore what a white dragon would look like if it had a wyvern-style body. Oh, see this here with like the wings attached? Look at all the different iterations they went through, trying to figure out how to land on all these different creature designs, the long necks and stuff. 3D modeling is essentially digital sculpture using digital clay. So we can see again here some 3D models of, this looks more like the older blue dragon from 2014. We've got green, gold. I'm not sure what that one is. Maybe silver. And I like that a lot more of the dragons are having these interesting, like, slender designs. But I'm also sad that some of these... Look at the black dragon over here, like this version. I'm a little sad that some of these didn't end up making the final cut. But they look great. Simon Lee's digital sculpture of the green, blue, black, silver, green, and copper dragons. And then here we are getting further and further into the final versions. Look at this one. It's almost like kaiju-esque. Bronze, copper, and brass as a trio. Love that look. All right. Andrew Baker's bronze dragon concept went above and beyond with the shiny metallic texture painted directly onto the model. This concept brought a sleek and low-profile body that works well for an aquatic dragon. It's true. And then we've got silhouettes here, showcasing a different thing. And then 3D realism and detail. Now this looks like the classic silver dragon. Maybe they kept that same design. Here's the new gold, new copper. Then we get into 2D sketches. You can even see a bunch of them in the back here. Sketch from Alex had all the elements we wanted for the green dragon, long and snaky with a face that felt intelligent and dangerous. Also showed us that we need to be careful with small wing shape and long serpentine body because we had a similar plan for the gold dragon. Something regal about this head shape. Maybe a copper or bronze. How could this feel welcoming and friendly? Interesting that they went through how the process goes here. We like the idea of the blue dragon having the largest wings of all the dragons and of reframing it as the ultimate flyer. This piece gave us the idea that the blue could also be somewhat beautiful and sleek. All right, so we got to see some collaborations with the 3D model and then the paint over. Simon's clay sculpture and then all edited together here. All right, now we can see some dragons in their environments here. Showcasing again concept art, adding color to those. These gold dragon pieces look absolutely beautiful. Love that. Okay, whatever. Oh, people are watching back. That makes sense. Here we've got a gold dragon intertwined with a red dragon. It's just like a random bird just hanging out in the background. And then here's again a bunch of new options for the blue dragon here. Having a map of the world with named dragon locations would be nice. Yeah. I love what they've done with the green dragon because they gave it like a cobra hood. And here's again, let's click the black dragon. More green. Oh, look at this one. Oh, I wonder if this is this somebody controlling the green dragon? Did a series of exploration for how a green dragon might lure creatures to them in the forest to control. I really see. I don't think this is. I hope this is what the final version of the blue dragon looks like, because this looks nasty over here. I like that a lot. Got a green. These concept art pieces, like I would love to have these as like paintings. I would put these. I would hang these up for sure. I like the more T-Rex look of this red dragon. Kind of give me T-Rex vibes. And then again, very like celestial Kirin vibes on this gold dragon over here. Oh, see this is it. This is my probably my favorite green dragon piece that we've seen so far, with the frills and like the orange accent pieces. I love that. And then look at the ethereal kind of like wavy hair on this gold dragon. And then obviously just the pure destruction of the blue dragon up here. And then again, somebody chilling with the bronze over here. Here is, I like the change to the black dragon with the upper jaw being further back and the lower jaw being more underneath. And then again, here's the massive wings they've added to the blue dragon. All right, then we get into some anatomy stuff here on these dragons. So look at the difference on the red dragon, right? So here's the wormling down the bottom here. And here's where it gets to adult. And then ancient. Look at the expansion of the horns and the growths on this thing. At different points in dragons' growth cycles, they behave differently, hunt different prey, and fill different niches. Their anatomy reflects these stages. All right, so here's our red dragon again. Here's their egg, too, which is really cool, often encrusted with hardened lava. In their early life, red dragons hunt much smaller prey and are therefore built lighter and nimbler, and then they become chonky boys as they get bigger. Red dragon's fiery breath seems to build up inside, with its eyes and throat starting to glow before it releases fire from two glands underneath the tongue. So that's actually a really cool concept. Almost reminds me of like the monster versus Godzilla, where you can kind of see the blue building up before he releases the atomic breath. All right, and here's that epic shot again, full screen, of this dead gold dragon being mourned, what these people are kind of prostrating towards this red dragon up here. All right, here's our blue boy. Their egg's kind of interesting. We've got the wormling. Look at the size of the tail. And then the young one here. Expert flyers, a sight to behold. They have proportionally large wings early on, but the iconic horn starts growing fully only in young dragons and fully forming when they're adults. It was sent in an email, yeah. The blue dragon sizzles with electricity when charging up its lightning breath. Blue light glows between the dragon's smooth scales, while the little bolts of lightning combine into a powerful and barely contained beam of electric destruction. See, I don't like this art. So to the front of its jaw, blue dragon teeth are longer and well suited to catching and holding on to prey. See, like, okay, so we've got, this is an epic art piece of like a sky, maybe battle, right? Because we got griffin riders and stuff with this blue dragon. You can kind of see the lightning arcing and coming out of its mouth. I like this piece of art, and I like, again, just the epic size of the wings. I don't love this final design of the dragon. I really like... We're going to scroll up a little bit to find that one piece of blue dragon art that we looked at before. I like this one. The neck just seems a little crazier. I like this one and like the overall pose, the size of like the spiky tail and the wings. And then I really like this one. This one I really, really like. This blue dragon. This is probably, out of the new art that we've seen, this is my favorite blue dragon art that we've seen, is this one here. I think this one looks really good. I couldn't really care less about this one. I do like this one, just kind of classic wyvern look on top of like a a pillar. I like that, but I think I ultimately prefer those couple of pieces of art that we just saw over this final version of the Blue Dragon. I don't know what it is. It kind of reminds me of like a fish fillet, like the way the scales are. I liked the more like craggy look that we saw in some of the other art. Too smooth, correct. That is the best way to describe it. All right, then we have our green dragon. Oh, interesting. Green dragons lay huge clutches with dozens of eggs, but only a few hatchlings survive past the wormling stage. Oh, and it's leathery like a snake. That's new. As opposed to the much more like hardened egg here, like a stone for the blue and the red dragon. I like that they made the green dragon more snake-like and that its eggs are leathery. That's really cool, like a nice little change. They're very dark in color, but show bright green stripes as a form of aposematism. Is that how you say it? Signaling to predators that they are highly poisonous. Okay, yeah. And we can see as we grow here, more slender than adults, often make their layers in the twisted roots of branches of fallen trees. This isn't in the Dungeon Master's Guide. No, this is in a art book called it's just called like D&D Dragons. If you pre-ordered the bundle of all of the D&D books on D&D Beyond, you get access to this art book for free. It's like part of it. This though, this right here, this is my favorite. That they gave them hoods like cobras. I love this change. I think that that's great. I love that. Green dragons have chromatophores in their skin so they can change color in an instant in certain areas of their body. This is phenomenal, this change. Now, the fact that they have chromatophores that allow them to change the color of their bodies should, in theory, in my mind, make them more chameleon-esque. Now, they kind of are very much going snake cobra vibes with a lot of the art and the way things are. But if you're going to give them the ability to change their skin color, could they not be like chameleon-esque and be really good at like hiding with almost pseudo-invisibility as a non-magical inborn thing? That could be pretty cool. It's not on D&D Beyond. It's literally in an email, and it doesn't even feel like the email should be from D&D Beyond. Like, I had to search for it to find this email. And then it says Green Dragon's breath, a subtly glowing poisonous gas that seems to have a mind of its own. And then again, here is our full adult dragon. The weakest bite of all dragons in comparison to their body size, they more than make up for it for their sharp, retractable teeth and highly venomous fangs, which are tucked into a special pouch in the mouth. That I would love to see, like the snake-like fangs that they have, because again, we're definitely diving into that. I like that a lot. And again, here is our green dragon just coming out and whispering to this elven adventurer here. We can see again some of the orange chromatophores there. All right, here's our black dragon. A thick shell that can tolerate a lot of moisture, as they tend to incubate their eggs in piles of rotting vegetation, sometimes dead bodies. That's really cool, incubating their eggs in dead bodies. And here, I like that you can see that even the wormling, its full face, it hasn't like melted the skin off with the acid. And it kind of basically operates like a crocodile, right? Look at this. Aquatic ambush predators. Any animal that comes too close to the water gets dragged in. Boy, could that be a wild encounter for young, like low-level adventurers. It's a swamp and they think it's like a crocodile or an alligator, and it turns out that it's a black dragon. Oh, man. Dude, that's so cool. Oh, my God. I can picture it. Like, it's some sort of strange-looking alligator creature. It's got, like, weird growths on its head. And then they go and it, like, jumps out and it's a black dragon. Oh, man, that would be so cool to encounter. Yeah. Wow. I know dead bodies don't produce heat, but I think they're talking more about the moisture of the dead body, because it says it puts it in rotting vegetation. As they age, they bulk up and their faces begin to turn white, resulting in a patchy black and white face in the young dragons. And then again, as we starts to acid hisses and smokes dangerously as it comes into contact with pretty much anything. The acidic vapor escapes the dragon's gills whenever it breathes its breath weapon. The horns of a black dragon have little practical use except for protecting its throat in fights and for display. They continue growing for the dragon's whole life, creating imposingly twisting shapes in ancient dragons. And it says here, black dragons breathe a powerful jet of acidic fluid that dissolves almost any material. I also like that they're starting to get, like, the wings are starting to get holes and stuff in them. And then here is, look at how nasty these horns, like, start out. Kind of, like, cute and small. And then they just become these absolutely monstrous things. Look at the size of this dragon and the wings. Oh, it just looks so good. Like, more now than ever would I want to take off a black dragon's horns to make, like, a badass helmet or something. But, I mean, obviously you couldn't even at this point because they'd be so huge. Here's our white dragon. Dark layer coating the true shell, which helps the egg absorb more warmth from the sun to quicken incubation. Yeah, I agree, friendlies. The cobras have, like, the eye patterns on the back of their heads to kind of, like, ward off other predators. That'd be really cool to see. Wormlings are almost perfectly white and often form smaller packs. Oh, interesting. White wormlings hunt in packs. Also, another ridiculously awesome encounter idea is if you're in, like, a icy tundra area and you encounter a pack of white dragon wormlings. That would be a wild low-level encounter. Yeah, and I think they are kind of wolf-esque looking in this new design. So I wonder if that's, like, part of the reason why they're saying they hunt in packs. That would be such a cool encounter. Later life, they go their separate ways and prefer a solitary existence. Okay, so they do break off on their own. The long keel of a white dragon's scales are hollow to keep them warm in colder regions of the world. Their crests and manes make them instantly recognizable. A white dragon's ice breath is so cold the air it passes through freezes, resulting in hundreds of little ice shards being hurled at the target. Oh. Oh my god, look at how camouflage. Dude, this is such a sick piece of art. Look at this. Like, this guy's frozen, they don't even know, and this guy's like, what's going on? And this guy's like, I think you missed the white dragon that's over here. And look at, like, the scales and, like, there's, like, hair, like, coming down the face on this white dragon, like these, like, tines or longer scales. This art piece is fantastic. I love this one. It's called, like, D&D Dragons or Art of D&D Dragons. Let me see if I can find it. Get you the exact name. Hang on. Oh, it was a pre-order bonus. What the hell's it called? Hang on, it is called. I don't know if you can still get it anymore. Oh, Dragons of D&D Digital Art Book is what it's called. Oh, geez, Agile Monk, thank you for the gifted memberships. Appreciate it. Always forget that you can even do that because I'm so used to Twitch. 5e proving that it's really all about the art. Thank you. Appreciate it. Really, really do. That's like polar bears. Pretty sure their fur hairs are hollow for warmth. Yeah, they did put a lot of thought into the design behind these. I really like it. Okay, gold dragon. Gold dragon eggs look like precious stones shot through with streaks of pure gold. Even pieces of the shells are valuable. When young, gold dragons are darker in color with gold sheen. Gold dragons defy the laws of physics and stay afloat because of the amount of magic coursing through their bodies. They are constantly moving like restless ribbons of water. All right. Here we can see more as they start to grow more like whiskers. Gold dragons breathe the magical essence of fire, pure golden. Oh, that's golden fire. Pure golden, blindingly bright, and hotter than any ordinary fire. When doing so, their horns and eyes glow with magical energy. Gold dragons can eat almost anything, and their teeth can crush the hardest jewels. Dark patches beneath the eyes help the gold dragons see, since they reduce the glare coming off the dragon's shiny body. The antler-like horns never stop growing and reach an imposing, almost crown-like quality in ancient dragons. Try to create more useful... does that mean they don't have a fly speed, but a magic speed? It's still a fly speed, but I'm assuming they can hover because they're not actually flapping their wings. And this is the iconic piece that we've seen a bunch of so far. All right, silver dragon. Look at the egg for the silver dragon. Are attached above ground while the wormling lying upside down in the egg, hatching like a butterfly. Interesting. Man, they put so much thought into this. Wormlings and young dragons are very slender and graceful. With their long legs, they are able to reach high speeds when running. Yeah, look at this. It is much taller, like higher up than like other dragons. So this could look like it could get a pretty high top speed by just pounding along and running. Okay, and then we can see we keep... it does still seem to retain that. I hope it does have a higher movement speed than other dragons. They breathe a cone of purple glowing ice made of freezing cold vapor carrying shards of ice. And then we have this piece that we've seen going around of this silver dragon with all the people kind of worshiping it. You get dragonborn, kobolds, and so on. Harengon. All right, bronze dragon lay their eggs underwater. Oh, it looks like a frog egg, right? Attaching them to strands of kelp or large rocks. The shell is harder than it looks, but the dragon will protect its clutch fiercely nonetheless. So that it has like an underwater egg sac pod. Shark egg, yes, very much shark egg-like. Bronze dragon wormlings spend much of their time in the water and are thus even better adapted to aquatic lifestyles than the adults. As wormlings, they are brighter in color, they darken as they age, and the amount of blue patina increases. In contrast to the blue dragon's lightning breath, that of the bronze dragon exhibits more flowing lines. Long conical teeth help the bronze dragon catch and hold on to slippery aquatic prey. And then, oh, look at this piece. I don't think I've ever seen this piece before. Look at this. Now, this book is going to ignore dragon turtles. I can tell you that for sure. Thank you, Agile Monk. Yeah, we had a blast at the Ren Fair, and everybody seems to love that picture, which is really cool. All right, here's our copper dragon, covered in deep grooves, making them appear almost like strange artifacts of eons long past. Copper dragon wormlings are quite flat and wide, which makes them extremely good at climbing steep roofs or steep rocky cliffs and walls. They are also able to squeeze into crevices to reach prey, and their coloration is darker and duller than that of adults. The acid breath of the copper dragon glows and smokes in the same color as nitric acid reacting with copper. It starts as a thick liquid, then sprays out into finer droplets while still forming a powerful jet. And I like that they made the copper dragon, they gave him these big, long, like slender necks. Like, look at this guy over here. Just reveling. We've got this Owlin bard here just jamming out with this lute. And he's just here with, like, look at the spots on the inside of the wings, too. Very much, like, moth-like. Yeah, very iguana-looking. Yeah. Brass dragon. Brass dragon eggs have layers and layers on top of brass-like shell that gets brittle while the eggs lie in the full light of the desert sun. Bit by bit, these layers crack from exposure and peel off like old paint, revealing the shiny egg and making it easier for the wormling to hatch. When brass dragons hatch, they are dull brown with a mottled pattern of ochre. The scales get more shiny and brass with age. They are very spiky, which protects them from the vulnerable hatchlings from predators. Thank you again, Agile Monk, for the gifted subs. I really do appreciate it. You guys are awesome. I feel like I should have been doing this on Twitch. It's September. A brass dragon's fire is truly beautiful. The color of the flames is blue near the base and then turns into a bright orange. It is a very dangerous weapon to encounter. I like that they changed that, right? The gold dragon breathes golden fire, and then the brass dragon, it starts out like hot blue fire and then goes to orange. As a desert, it just has very lion look to it, doesn't it? Kind of much more like mane, like lion mane and lion face. As desert dwellers, brass dragons are able to eat almost any part of a carcass. Resources are sparse, and they make do with what they can get. And then look at this. Giant wings. And that is the entirety of this art book. So yeah, I just wanted to go through and take a look with some folks, get an idea what you all thought about this. Yeah, I get to see the Triceratops head. I just like the amount of variety. I know not everybody's keen on all the changes. I know, like I said, I personally don't love the blue dragon changes, but I like that they did put thought into like the anatomy of like the way the different eggs are. Like the green dragons are very snake-like. They've added a lot of intrigue and like unique variability to make all of the dragons different. I mean, this art is just so good. This piece right here. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the changes they've made. I'd say for the most part, as like a general rule, I'm a fan of the changes. I like that they've tried to make them all very distinct and unique from the other dragons. I think that's pretty cool. This whole book, it's just called, the Dragon D&D Dragons art book here, right? Let's get to the top. Dragons of D&D. This is it. It's a free digital art book. It doesn't exist in a physical form, at least not yet. And it was just an incentive that you would get for pre-ordering the entire bundle of all 2024 books from D&D Beyond, on top of like the Project Sigil Digital Gold Dragon Mini and like a unique set of dice on D&D Beyond. But yeah, I just wanted to take an opportunity to go through this and get an idea of what everybody thought, and just kind of look at it, because I feel like a lot of people, one, don't know that this book exists, or they got it and they can't find it in their email, which is entirely possible. It took me multiple times on multiple occasions to find this book, because I had it open and then I closed it and then I lost it. It was a whole thing. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it shows off a lot of the work they put in to build out the dragons and make them unique. So yeah, nothing beyond this though. No astral stuff. No god dragons. None of that other stuff. Jeez. Oh my god. Thank you, Agile Monk, for the super chat as well. Again, thank you. Yeah, I'm out here doing the best I can. We got a lot of stuff coming. I got a bunch more videos. I have like a whole bunch that I recorded. I have to show off this cool thing. I got these sweet like Ravenloft dice from the folks over at Beetle and Grimm. This is like a dice box. Comes with like coins and cool dice and stuff. I have that videos recorded. Working on a bunch of stuff. So will there be another PDF of art for dungeons? That would be very cool to have like a dragon art book and a dungeon art book. Yeah, we did see the kind of leaked green dragon stat block that we covered in a previous video. So I'm hoping that it will in fact lead to quite unique opportunities, that each dragon fight's gonna feel impactful. Because I'll be honest, having fought dragons in older editions, like in 3.5, it was terrifying to get into a fight with a dragon. Like, you would try to avoid that if you could. And then having started my adventures in 5th edition with Tyranny of Dragons as a campaign, I just killed dragons left and right, and they weren't that scary. If you could find a way to mitigate breath weapon damage from a dragon, it wasn't dangerous to fight them. Like, yeah, they could do a butt ton of damage, but if you're like a paladin and say have, charisma modifier to your saving throws, and maybe you can find a way to get yourself resistance, you're quartering pretty significantly quartering the damage of a dragon breath weapon. And at that point, it's just like, I can do more damage to you with smites than you can do to me with a breath weapon, and let's just go toe to toe. So I was not afraid of fighting dragons in 5th edition. Like, it didn't scare me at all. Whereas I was terrified of what that experience would be like in 3.5. So I'm hoping these revamps to the rules and the adjustments here will make dragons scary again. Let's see. The biggest thing I want to know about the DMG is, do they reveal the formula? No, not a single thing was mentioned about encounter balance at all. CR calculations, none of that was mentioned at all in that video. From what I saw, we've only seen the I've only seen the green dragon stat block from that one leaked video or leaked image. Let me pull it up here. But yeah, they actually showed this at the like the media event at Gen Con, and they were like, don't take pictures. And I'm pretty sure somebody just took a picture and they put it out there. But either way, here is the green dragon stat block, right? This is an ancient green dragon. We can see it's amphibious. It has advantage on initiative rolls, which is a new feature here called Battle Ready. It has 4 legendary resistances, or 5 if it's in its lair. It can make 3 rend attacks, which do 2d8 plus 8 piercing plus 3d6 poison damage. It can replace one of those attacks with the use of a spellcasting thing, right? So you can attack and replace one with at-will spells only, which is a level 5 charm monster, detect magic, and a level 4 dissonant whispers, which are at will, with a DC of 21. It's got a cloud kill twice per day, Gias twice per day, modify memory once per day, and polymorph once per day. It has its poison breath, which is a 90-foot cone that does 22d6 poison damage. And then it has 3 reactions per round. If it's in its lair, it can take an additional reaction, which is Charming Presence. Another creature the dragon can see. The trigger is when another creature the dragon can see ends its turn. And as that reaction, it can cast Charm Monster, which is, again, level 5, which is at will, so it doesn't spend spell slots. The trigger for Corrosive Miasma is it uses its legendary resistance trait, or it's hit with a ranged attack. It can force a DC 21 con save to each creature in a 30-foot radius sphere centered on a point it chooses within 90 feet. If they fail, they take 46 poison damage and have a -2 penalty to their AC until the end of their next turn. And then Rend Retaliation is a response to it taking damage. It can make a Rend attack. But notice, like, there's no Frightful Presence, but it has Charming Presence as its own unique thing where it can attempt to charm somebody when somebody ends their turn. So you could see just a little bit here about how there are unique aspects to it. It's got the spellcasting. Does every dragon have magic? We don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things that make this unique. So like maybe white dragons have frightening presence, but green dragons have charming presence. Maybe they all have a different kind of presence. And we don't have access to what the lair actions and stuff would be either. And they seem to have, seems like they've gotten rid of legendary actions entirely in favor of giving them multiple reactions. And then rather than the reactions be triggering like when a turn ends, it's their reactions, so they all have their own unique reaction trigger. So again, Charming Presence is when a creature that it can see ends its turn, which would be similar to the old legendary actions at the end of a player turn. That's that. Whereas Corrosive Miasma is when it has to pop its legendary resistance to succeed on a saving throw, or when it's hit with a ranged attack. So it's not just it can happen at the end of anybody's turn. It can actually happen in somebody's turn. Right? Legendary actions were at the end of a player turn. So if a player hits this dragon with its range attack on that player's turn, it could activate Corrosive Miasma, not being tied to something specific. And then again, or it could do Rend Retaliation because it has, whenever it takes damage. So it is only 1 reaction per round, but it gets 3 per round. And I actually think this is a lot cleaner and better designed than the old concept of legendary actions. I think this works a little bit better. I actually prefer this myself. Yeah, it could be something ripped from Pathfinder. I just don't recall. But yeah, I like that they've done a little bit to add some variability here to the individual encounters. And it seems like, again, the additional reactions is just going to be how we're going to handle what were legendary actions previously will now just be multiple reactions, which it's just one less thing to have to remember about legendary actions. Like, you're thinking about reactions anyway. So you have your standard usage of reactions that anybody has, like opportunity attacks, but then this also has these additional ones, and it can take 3, possibly 4, if you're foolish enough to encounter the dragon in its lair. Which I also like, that besides just the ability to use lair actions, they have other benefits if you're dumb enough to fight them on their home turf, which is getting an extra reaction per round and an additional usage of legendary resistance. So if you're going to fight him in his home, he's going to be better in a bunch of ways by doing so. And that makes sense, right? It is a stronger thing. If you're fighting it on its home turf in its lair, it's going to be better. And this is a great way to do this on top of potentially lair actions as well. Yeah, I like where this is going. I'm very curious to see. Now, again, also take with this with a grain of salt. This was something we saw in August. The stat block, obviously, I don't think is technically final, so things could change on this. And we'll obviously do a comparison with this stat block with the final version once we have access to it. But, well, see, you said they got rid of the wing attack, but I like that attack because it added AoE elemental damage on it based on the dragon. That might just not be a thing green dragons have access to, right? We talked about how blue dragons have the biggest wingspan of all dragons. Maybe blue dragons have the wing attack. So that's a thing. I think they're trying to make them all feel more unique and individual. So when you fight a specific dragon, it's not just going to be like what it is in 5e, like, oh, deal with the resistance and they all can do these things. It's now green dragon, like, if you don't have the monster manual and don't read what all of the dragons can do, it might be a really cool and fun learning experience for you as a player, because fighting a green dragon will be drastically different than fighting a blue dragon versus a black dragon versus a red or a white. They're all going to be different encounters because the way they play and the abilities they have are unique to them. So you have to adapt. Instead of just like get resistance and wail on it, there might be different ways to go about it because you have to deal with some of the other things it has going for it, which I really like because it is making each encounter unique. Because regardless of the terrain, you might have different lair actions with 2014 dragons. The fight was basically the same, right? We can all agree. There wasn't that much difference. They're going to pop Frightful Presence. They're going to hit you with the breath weapon. Unless they don't have it, then they're going to hit you with claws. Maybe throw a wing attack in there or something like that. That's about it. Now they have different options to make the encounter specific, which I like. Yes, correct. Spamming Dissonant Whispers is huge, and it's a 5th level or 4th level Dissonant Whispers. So it's not a small amount of psychic damage, and the fact that it can trigger people having to move away, which could prompt opportunity attacks, especially if the green dragon has minions, that it can get free opportunity attacks and stuff. And again, Corrosive Miasma is a 30-foot radius, right? That's a 60-foot diameter sphere of of poison damage, and poison damage that also cuts your AC down. Like, that could be huge if this dragon has a couple of kobolds or whatever in its lair on top of just itself. It could do drastic, like, AoE damage with that kind of stuff. And the fact that it can pop out a cloud kill, a level 8 cloud kill no less, twice a day, because Corrosive Miasma isn't concentration, and it could pop that as a damage trigger and also have cloud kill up on top of its breath weapon. So it can really lay down consistent damage to just lock down an area and make it really hard for the party. Right, Jen here in the chat says, I do love the idea of a dragon with attacks optimized for aerial combat rather than grounded. Well, right, the black dragon might be, especially if it's a younger black dragon, might be suited better for aquatic combat than aerial combat. So there's different options, and I'm hoping that what we've heard and what we've seen is that will be what we get in the final version of the 2024 player or monster manual we get in February, is that each dragon is going to feel unique to fight. So yeah, I think it's going to be good. So I'm excited for it. Well, we managed to get 2 videos out of this discussion. We got our everything you need to know about the Dungeon Master's Guide, which I will cut down, and then also throw out this Dragon art book video as a separate video as well. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go. I had like a late breakfast. I had like a brunch, so I'm a little bit hungry. So I might go make myself some lunch here. They did say blue dragons seem to be the best flyers and have the biggest wingspan, so that could be part of it. But yeah, I think I might head out for a little bit. I might pop back later in an hour or two. I'm not sure what I have got going on exactly, so I will let you know. Keep an eye on social media. I might drop a couple other videos. But I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I'll see you at the very least. If I don't see you before then, I'll see you on Thursday for the other Bastion, Intro to Bastion live react, which we will also conduct at noon on Thursday. So anyway, I hope you all have, like I said, a great rest of your day. See you all next time.